This is story time on how I found out about my actual biological father. When I turned 15, you know, in Hispanic households, there's a quinceanera. So my mom was like really like trying to force me to have a quinceanera. And I was a tomboy at the time. So I was like, I don't really want one. I don't want to be the center of attention. Like, I'm just kind of scared about the whole thing. And I don't want you to waste money. Like, I just don't think it's something that I need to have. But she's like, your older sister didn't have it and I had one and I just want to have one with you. And I was like, okay, fine. I ended up giving in. And throughout that whole process, she ended up telling me, oh, by the way, your biological father contacted me. And I was so confused. I didn't have any information about him. I didn't want to know about him because I already had a dad. So I was like, what do you mean? Like, what are you trying to say? She's like, well, he wants to talk to you. He wants to meet you. And I was so like caught off guard. I was like, whoa. Like, I'm not okay with this. I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't want to talk to this man. Like, he left me. He left you. Like, why do you want him in my life? She's like, because he's actually your biological father and you have a whole nother family that you haven't met. And I was like, I don't care. Like, no offense, but those are strangers to me. They had nothing to do with me growing up. They had nothing to do with my... So after a while, she just kind of explained to me that he went to jail. And I was like, did he go to jail before or after he left you? And she said, after he left me. And I was like, okay, so like I said, he left us. He found out that you were pregnant with me. That's all I knew, that he left. So I was like, why do you want this man in my life? Why do you even want me to talk to this man? You don't even like this man. She's like, you don't know. You have to give him a second chance. You know, it wasn't his fault. He went to jail. And I was like, okay, so what did he go to jail for? She's like, that's not my story to tell. And I was like, oh, so it's his? She's like, yeah, once you meet him, like, you'll understand. And I was like, no, I actually don't want to understand. I don't care for it. And I was like, does my dad know that you're doing this? And she's like, no. And I was like, how is this man contacting you? She's like, he just got out of jail. He doesn't know anything about technology. He's using Facebook. Like, they're trying to update him on all the technology that we have now. And it was like so crazy to me that someone was in jail for that long for whatever crime and doesn't know how to use a phone. And I was like, wow. And then she's like, yeah, but I'm gonna get his number soon. He's gonna get a phone. He's gonna want to talk to you. And I was like, I don't want to talk to him. Please stop trying to force me. And she's like, no, I think you should talk to him. And I was like, just because... So she would bring it up every day after school. She would say, hey, he wants to talk to you. He keeps messaging me about you. Just give him 10 minutes. So then I threatened her and I was like, if you keep trying to force this on me, I'm going to tell my dad. And I know damn well he doesn't like this. He doesn't even know about it. So she's like, stop threatening me. Just like give him 10 minutes, talk to him, see what he wants. And I was like, he's a stranger. I don't want anything from him. I don't care what he wants. He left us. Why don't you understand that? She's like, well, you have a whole other side of the family that you haven't met. And I was like, I don't want to meet them. No offense, but they're strangers. I don't care. So she would continuously do it over and over again. And then one day I was in my room and she caught me off guard. She came knocking on my door and she's like, hey, your dad's on the phone. And I was like, oh my God, like what happened? She's like, oh, your father's on the phone. And I was like, okay, I don't want to talk to him. She's like, you need to. And I was like, okay, just because I wanted her to shut up. So I got on the phone with him. He's like, hey, mija. And I was like, oh, fuck no. I was like, I'm not your daughter. Don't call me that. He's like, but you are my daughter. And I was like, I'm just talking to you because my mom keeps forcing me. So what do you want? So I finally got on the phone with him. I was already like thrown off guard because he tried to call me his daughter. But I was like, you're just a stranger to me. Don't call me that. I wasn't trying to be a bitch. It's just like, I don't want to talk to this stranger. You had nothing to do with my childhood. You left my mom. I even asked him, like, why'd you go to jail? He said, we need to talk in person about that. And I was like, I don't want to meet you in person. You're a stranger. I don't want anything to do with you. He's like, I would like to come to your quinceanera. And I was like, oh, fuck no. Like, you're not going to come and ruin that. That's a day for me, my family. The family that raised me. My dad is going to have my first dance. Like, I'm not doing that with you. You weren't there for me for whatever reason. He's like, yeah, and he just kept trying to blame it on jail. I was like, I understand you got arrested. I understand that. But why do you want to meet me so bad? He's like, well, you're one of the 11 kids that I have, and you're the last one that I haven't met. I was so confused. I was like, 11? I definitely didn't want to meet him. And I was like, I'm sorry, but you have nothing to do with my life, and you're a stranger, and I don't want to talk to you anymore. So he said he understood, and we ended the conversation. And then I wanted to tell my dad about it just because I felt so uncomfortable. So my mom followed me to the room, and she started lying on me. She went into the room and she ended up telling my dad that he contacted me through Facebook. I already knew that she didn't want to look like the bad guy. So I went along with her little lie. And I just explained to my dad, I was like, look, I just got off the phone with my father. And my dad was like so concerned and he was so worried. He looked like so sad. And I was like, look, no matter what, you're my dad. He's a stranger to me. I already told him I want nothing to do with him. So you don't have to worry about that. And he's like, no, like, I don't want to stop you from meeting him. And I continued to explain to him, I was like, he is a stranger. He left us. You are my dad. You're the only person that I know, and you're the only person that I want to know as that figure. And he started crying. He's like, okay, well, I just love you, and I support your decision at the end of the day. And I felt so bad because I knew, like, he was thinking about it, but I didn't want him to second guess his fucking role in my life. So I ended up hugging him, and we ended up crying, and I felt so bad. And I was like, I'm so sorry that happened, but I love you, and nothing's gonna change that. And my mom ended up, like, getting into the hug. I was just so annoyed. I was like, this fucking bitch. I didn't say anything. I was like, okay, whatever. Then she had the audacity to try to invite this man to my quinceanera. After the whole ordeal, she still threatened me. She's like, hey, I'm gonna invite him to your quinceanera. I was like, if you do that, I'm gonna tell my dad exactly what happened and I will leave my quinceanera. I'm not trying to be a spoiled brat, but you are not listening to my boundaries. So she's like, okay, fine, but you can't go your whole life without ever meeting him. And I was like, my older siblings did. I think I can manage it. So that's the story and how I found out about my actual father, my biological father. I just want to say to all the stepdads out there who actually stepped up, you guys are so amazing, you guys are so strong, and I'm so glad that I had my stepdad there to raise me and be there for me. I just, even through all the bad stuff, like I will always love him. And fuck you to the guys who left their kids and never checked on them or tried to come back into their lives. We don't need you. We never needed you guys. Thanks for watching, bye! This is a story time on how I found out my dad wasn't actually my dad. We lived in my grandma's house for a long time, and around when I was 10 years old, my parents got in a really nasty fight, and my dad ended up just walking away from the whole situation. He ended up like just walking out of the house. And my mom came back inside and she was crying. I tried to comfort her, so we went to the room together, and I'm just like trying to hug her. I'm trying to like show her some emotion, and then she's like, do you want another dad? And I was so confused that I had to answer that question. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, that's not actually your dad. Do you want another dad? And I was like, sure. I was tense. I didn't know what the fuck she was talking about. And then she's like, okay, good, because that's just somebody who raised you. He's not your actual biological dad. And now that I think about it, I was like, wow, like that's a terrible way for me to find out just because you guys thought you wouldn't tell me. So my parents used to fight all the time, so I knew he was coming back eventually. So he finally comes back after like 2 weeks, and this was around the same time where I was going to work with my parents. They just didn't want to leave me at my grandma's house, so I'd go to work with them with my little brother. And me and my little brother got in a fight. I don't really remember what happened. I just remember screaming at my little brother saying, you're not even my brother, like get off me. And then he started crying. He's like, what do you mean? I am your brother, stop saying that. I was 10. I didn't know that that was a bad thing to do. I wasn't like trying to be spiteful. I just wanted him to understand, like, you're not my brother, stop hitting me, blah blah blah. I don't know what was going on through my head, but my parents come back in the car and they're like, what are you guys doing? And then my brother's like, she keeps saying that she's not my sister, she's lying, tell her to stop lying. And then my dad didn't know that my mom told me about it, so he was so confused and he like was pissed at my mom. He's like, why would you tell her that? And she's like, well, I'm not lying. And then my mom looked at me and she got mad at me. She's like, why would you tell your brother that? I was like, even after I found out he wasn't my dad, like, he still treated me like his own. I had the same last name as him. Like, I didn't think anything of it. In the back of my head, I know he's not my actual father, but that's the difference between a father and a dad. I feel like a dad is someone who's always there for you, someone who took care of you, someone who just loved you growing up, or even just for a period of time. And a father, he may be like your biological father, but to me, like, that's the difference between a father and a dad, because anybody could be a father, but not everybody could be a dad. So that's why I just like still love him. And even through our bad times, like, I have some really bad scenarios with my dad, but he will always be my dad. And sometimes when I do get upset, I refer to him as my stepdad, but then I realize, like, it's kind of like selfish of me to do that, because even if he is my stepdad, like, I still think of him as my dad. I still act like he's my dad. So at the end of the day, he's my dad. No matter what happens, no matter what situation we go through, I will always have love for him. Like, he was there for me when my father couldn't be. So I'm just so glad and so thankful that I actually had that in my life. So on a more positive note, I'm just gonna do a story time on how I started saving up and how I started like getting these rules into my head that everything is gonna be earned and not given to me. So around 9 years old, I noticed that my dad was becoming like a major alcoholic. Like, I knew he drank, but he didn't drink as much. And then around 9, he started like really putting alcohol before everything else, before our family, before his job, before everything. So my mom had a food truck. They both did. They owned it. And my dad was a cashier and my mom was a cook, and she would serve people. But then my dad wasn't as present, so she asked me for help, and I was like, yeah, of course I'm gonna help you, like, you're my mom. So it was the summer between 9 and 10. I ended up going to work with my mom every day in the summer. I woke up at 5 in the morning. I helped her load the truck. I helped her just like do the cashier part while she was serving the people. So she would go to construction sites, she would go to farms, whatever she could go to so she could feed people. So I started doing that with her, and I was a cashier, and we went to this one farm, and it was Tom's farm. And Tom has a lot of farms, and he was really rich. He was a white guy. So I did have an older sister and did have an older brother, but they were like still focused on like their own things. And at that age, I really didn't have anything going on with my life, so I was perfectly fine going to work with my mom. And nobody else would help her. Like, nobody else like put that energy into my mom and like decided that they would take on the responsibility. I decided to, because why not? It's good. It's a good way for me to save money, and it's a good way for me to know that everything is like earned and not given. So like I said, Tom noticed that I was out there at the farms with my mom every morning, and he's like, so what are you doing out here? And I was like, well, my mom needed to help, and like, I decided that it would be a good way for me to start saving up money. He's like, what are you saving up money for? And I was like, well, I wanted to buy this iPod. He's like, he's like, how much do you have saved up? At that time, I only had like $100. I was like, it's like $95, maybe $80 I have saved up. And I told him that. He's like, okay, so how would you feel if I just gave you the rest of the money? And then I looked over at my mom and I was like, well, I don't know, like you have to ask her. And he's like, okay, so how much is it in total? And at the time, I think it was like 400, 500. Don't quote me on the price of the iPod because I really don't remember at the time. I just knew it was like $500, $600, and he knew that I had $85 saved up. So he asked my mom, and my mom said yes, but I just want her to know that not everything is going to be given to her. And he said, that's fine. Like, I think she should know also that at such a young age that doing the right thing and helping your parents out, you deserve to be rewarded. So he ended up giving me the money for like the case, the insurance, and everything. We went to the store the same day. We got the iPod, and I was so happy. And I learned that I need to take care of my things, that I need to not ever depend on a man, because I could see the situation that my mom was put in because she married my dad and that he wasn't as reliable as she thought. I also like knew at that age that I would never like be an alcoholic, that I would never like put alcohol over everything else, that I had my rules like set up since I was 9. And yes, I did mature fast. I don't think it was a bad thing. I also don't think it was a good thing, because at that age I should be like, playing with my friends. I should be doing this and that. But I just like, I'm so grateful that I learned those rules at such a young age, and that I have had those rules since.
Này không tát bà đúng không?
Chả giá.
Chào chưa? Giật cả mình. Anh như một con ma, anh lớn à? Bụp phát đây.
Chị làm việc gì khuất tất sau lưng anh Tuấn đúng không?